And there's some talk that this could be one of the best wide receiver classes that this school has ever landed. You were a part of that history. When you take a look at it, evaluate what you got today, how good is it?
Well, one, it's a group effort. I mean, what Coach Pantoni, his staff does in this building is tremendous. I think, and obviously with the help I get in the room with Coach Keenan Bailey is just phenomenal. And again, the list goes on. I mean, it's not just a two-person operation, not a three-person operation. It's a whole program operation. And again, it's a lot about what we do, but it's more about them. I mean, they are the right guys. And again, people have made comments about you're going kind of out there to get this guy, going over there to get that guy. I really feel like the guys bring us to them. We're a good fit. I like the family environment. They're great players, and they have the right makeup, between the ears. And that's the biggest thing I like to look for. I think that unleashes what any ability you have is all predicated on, what you have between the ears. And all these guys are great young men, and I think they have that makeup.
With the guys that you're losing, how much urgency is there now to transition from the recruiting phase to get them ready to potentially help next year?
Yeah, really important. I mean, that's how they'd want it too. So, but like you commented on, I mean, having, 7 guys leave in 2 years. I mean, that's a large uptake, ontaking, and I think that with that, there's a lot of responsibility, both from the guys that are having opportunities currently in the room and the guys coming in. So there's a lot of opportunities all over the world and all over the place. I'm sorry, and I think our receiver room is definitely one of them. But again, all of this stuff is on potential. These guys have the makeup. They want to come in and compete, and I know they're going to do that. And I think that we're going to provide them with as many resources as possible to be successful. But again, this is just kind of like a checkpoint. It's like Mario Kart. We got the race started good. We hit the first checkpoint just to get to the next checkpoint. So we'll keep pushing, but this is just the beginning.
Brian, before guys you brought in today, which positions do you see each of them fitting into this offense at?
You kind of want to play that. Where will each guy play? I've talked to them about that, but we really like guys that are very versatile, and can play different things. I mean, I think that, I think of like Mookie Cooper. I think that he is definitely a guy that can play in that slot and be very dynamic. So it's probably where he'll be. The other 3 guys, I think they're very flexible. I think they can kind of all move around, and we'll kind of see how it all plays out. I kind of have a game plan in my head, but I kind of want to leave it there, and we'll see how it goes. Again, a lot of that's based on the current guys and how they're doing, and how do we complement what they do with what these guys may do. And again, in the end, there's a lot of work to be put in, and these guys got to learn an offense, and they got to come in and compete and really earn the respect of their peers before the rest of it kind of takes off.
KJ leaving and him being the only guy who's really played in the slot this year, do you have to look at whether it's current guys or guys coming in, possibly moving a couple of those guys into the slot to potentially take that role?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that anything's on the table. In the end, you always want your best players on the field, and we'll take a hard look at that as an offense and see where maybe each guy would be most successful. But understand, like Austin Mack is a great example of a guy that played all 3 positions, played one position, frankly, his entire career, and then in this last part of his career, this last season, he played the other 2. So I don't ever like putting handcuffs on anybody and kind of putting them in a box and telling them they can only play one position. I feel like these guys that come in here, they're great receivers. They can play any spot, on that on the offense. So we'll adjust week to week. We'll adjust year to year, whatever it takes. So definitely take a good look at that.
Yeah, obviously, there's some Ohio State receivers doing pretty well in the NFL right now. Michael Thomas leading that. How much do you use that kind of in real time with the guys that you're recruiting, either this class or guys still out there?
I think the biggest thing with that is a lot of guys really aren't fans of teams anymore. It's more of players. And obviously, Mike is the best in the NFL. And a lot of the guys that like Ohio State or maybe are even coming here like Mike Thomas. So to have that conversation about him being around and talk about, communication we've had, is always good, but I don't honestly oversell anything like that. I think that it's a track record. I don't think it's just, Mike. I think it's before Mike, from the Chris Carters on. And I think a lot of that has to do with the competition we have at practice and the consistency with that. But obviously, it's a conversation. It's always a good talking piece, and especially when the best one in the NFL is one of your own. It's a pretty easy conversation. So definitely helps, but I wouldn't say I overkilled that by any means.
Hey, Brian. Jaxon Smith-Njigba was a little bit late to the party in terms of getting up here in the recruiting rankings, and you were on him like more than a year ago. What did you see from him early on that made you love him so much? And, you know, how far in advance into the future are you breaking down film for guys like that who are out of state so he can be one of the first on the scene there?
Yeah, I think Jax, there's kind of a lot of things in play. One, again, Mark Pantoni and his staff have done a great job helping identify guys and, hey, coach, take a look at this guy. And then really it started from there, right? And then once you start talking to a young man, you know, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but you find a guy that has the right mental makeup, and then you're okay. Well, what can he do athletically? He's like, well, everything. It's like, okay, so what can he do at some point? You know, you kind of get to that conversation almost like a scout, I think. And then, you know, again, we started talking to the young man and his family and how great they were, and you know, they came to some games early on, so that relationship started to form. You know, in the end, again, when we talk about guys, it's just about, hey, this is an opportunity. We think you're a really good player. We'd love for you to be here. And then you kind of take it from there. I mean, it wasn't like we're necessarily mad scientists. He's done a phenomenal job, and his head coach has done a phenomenal job. And Rockwall, the program down there is amazing. And I think it mimics a lot of what we do here. And I think that, again, it's kind of hard to say, oh, you know, he kind of took off and all the ratings things and all that. In the end, you know, he's a really good football player. He had the great mental makeup. We fell in love with the family. They fell in love with us, and it was really, he was our first commit. So in the receiver room, I think it was just a match made that was supposed to happen. We're glad it worked out the way it did. He's developed into a great player, and now he has to take another step once he gets here. But I'm just really proud of him as a person and all of the turmoil he kind of had being down there and then leaving that state and coming up here and the local schools. And there's a lot that went into that. And I think that, you know, their loyalty and how great they've been through the whole process is just epitomizes the whole entire recruiting process. And I can't say enough about them, but you know, he's doing a great job. We thought he might, but again, he's developed so well, and I can't wait for him to be here.
Ryan, when you look at the receivers you're bringing in, you got guys from all over the country, right? When you go into a place to recruit somebody who lives in Texas, I'm assuming part of the discussion and the thought process is how hard is it going to be to get this guy out of the state? Were you surprised at all at the beginning of your recruitment about how little Texas was in on him at the time?
You know, I don't know. I mean, we just kind of focus on our own. You know, we just focus on what, you know, how we want to communicate about our program. Don't really worry about the other programs. We've put ourselves at a very high level, and we hold ourselves there. And frankly, we feel like there's only a couple of programs probably in the country that we kind of rival, you know, and we're proud of that. We're not, you know, boasting. So we weren't overly worried about who's in the area, who else maybe is recruiting you. It was more like, hey, when we get there, we'll have that conversation. But right now, this is Ohio State. This is what we have to offer, and we kind of just took it from there. We didn't really think about, you know, how hard or what's any of that. We just kind of played it by ear. And again, in the end, if we want to go after some of the best, both young men and players in the country, we expect, you know, to be competing against some of the best programs. So no real thought to it, but kind of expected.
This was your first cycle with Ryan as the head coach. How did he handle the whole thing? I mean, it's a lot for one person to go through. What were your impressions of how he did in his first full cycle?
Oh, Coach Day's awesome. I mean, he's a stud. I think that, you know, a guy that, you know, we do a lot as position coaches, but for a guy that, you know, can always come to, and if you really kind of get into an issue, you can bring it to him. He'll love to help you out, and plus the amount of communication he has with the recruits is, you know, paramount. It's huge, and you can tell he bleeds this program. He bleeds the culture, and he makes sure that it's not just a bunch of position coaches recruiting these guys. He's recruiting them. So to have a guy like that to work with, you're rarely on your own, and I can't say enough about the availability he has when it comes to recruiting.
A brief thumbnail sketch or whatever of their skill sets of your guys.
Sure. So got 4 receivers. Start with Jax. Jax is down in Texas. I think he's a guy that, again, going through what, you know, I always start kind of the negative, not to be in a bad way, but maybe that's the NFL approach I kind of had, is that, you know, what can he do? Where is his weaknesses? And he's just one of those guys that's really hard to maybe find. You know, I think that, you know, he plays great competition. He runs great routes. He's a smart guy. He I think he understands the offense. You don't really know until you get your hands on him. He feels really coachable. Again, there's a lot of unknowns at that part of it, but he's a playmaker. He plays at a different speed. He's got a lot of good twitch. I think he tracks the ball really well. I think one thing you'll notice about these guys, they're all elite pass catchers. They really do well tracking the football, and I think that that's paramount when it comes to receiver play, and Jax epitomizes that. I would say Mookie Cooper, Terrion Cooper, is out in St. Louis, from St. Louis. Smaller guy, but really stocky. When he goes to block, he tries to knock you out. I mean, that's one of the biggest things I loved about him. He can, from speed sweeps to plays down the field. Again, he does a lot. I think that, again, just playing a little more running back maybe than receiver at times. There might be a transition there. But overall, I think, again, sitting out his senior year will be more to find out. But I think he's got the skill sets through the roof. He's very twitched up, very quick. He's pretty straight line fast too. And again, I think he tracks the ball really well. But he's going to provide mismatches, and I think that I'm thrilled to be having him. He has a skill set maybe in our room that we don't have a ton of, and it'll add to that. So those two guys. Then you got G. Scott Jr. out from Seattle. He is a bigger body guy, man. He's like 6'3", 6'4", runs pretty well, big and physical. Again, a great blocker. Does a great job in the run game. I would say that he tracks the ball. He swallows the ball. He's got huge hands, and every time there's a high point, I feel like he goes and gets that ball. So great jump ball guy. Again, really, I think pretty polished. Has pretty good top ends. He'll tell you too. The one thing will be getting with Coach Mick and working his tail off, seeing how fast he could potentially get. And at that point, I don't know. Again, I don't know what he can't do. So he'll keep working on that. Again, I think he's a really smart player. But again, with all these guys, there's so much potential. Just like anywhere in college, it's all about between the ears. How can you handle adversity? How can you, learn the offense? How fast can you learn the offense? So that's all an unknown. And lastly, Julian Fleming from PA. Again, he's 6'2", runs really well, really fast, ran track as well. Really great ball skills, very physical in the run game. What's great about Julian is he runs in a kind of a wing T offense, a heavy run offense. So the expectations on targets should be pretty low. So when he gets here, hopefully he's not like, hey man, I need the ball, because you didn't get it a whole lot in high school too. So with that being said, he get like 3 targets, it'd be 3 touchdowns and whatever else. But so that's good. So I expect a great blocker. He sends me all his blocking film before he sends me any kind of catch. He loves it. So hopefully that'll be brought here. But I think, from a route running standpoint, he'd probably tell you that he hasn't had a lot of exposure to running routes and being, exact and detailed on top ends and how to do all that. So the development as a receiver will happen. But again, these guys, what I can't speak enough about is, how, coachable they come off, and how dire need they want to be great, and how they talk about, contributing to the room. And that's where I fall in love. And again, I think fortunately so far, I haven't really got to know guys really deeply, and then a guy not come per se. So, I know one day that day is going to happen. It's going to crush me. I really, dive into the relationships, and I really enjoy coaching young men, whether it's here or other. I still have people from other schools that I've recruited that didn't come here that still try to text me. I know I can't, but, so I try to create great relationships with these guys, and that's really my sole purpose. So I think we've done that, on a two-way road. So I can't wait to have these guys in the room and add to what we have here with some phenomenal talent already in the room. And I can't say enough, though, again, about those kids, their parents, how they were raised, and what they want out of this program as much as anything else. So,
Right next door, Tim.
Yeah, Brian, playing off of that, you're recognized nationally as one of the great recruiters out there right now. What is it that you like about it? And then has it come naturally almost to you?
So this recruiter,
Yeah.
term just rubs me like the wrong way all the time. Like, I feel like, to me, again, I'm just, it's not a business. Like, these are like young men that just want to figure out where they're going to go to school, and they're trying to find a coach that they can relate to and a program they understand the culture, and that's all it is. I mean, what are we talking about? Like, it's Ohio State. Like, this is the best program in the country. So all you just got to do is talk about it. And I think if I talk about it, I could probably detail my drive into work every day. And when I see the baseball field and I can see the track and I can see Schottenstein over, this place is amazing. So I just try to communicate that as clearly as possible. Hopefully, my passion comes through for why I like coaching and why I like, the receiver play and the art form and how much I love it. But, I guess, it's Coach Pantone, it's Coach Day, it's not me. I guess I get the headline, but I just, I feel like the puppet, so. I don't know how to really answer that question. It's not a one-person job. There's a bunch of people that go involved in this, and let alone the parents. I mean, the parents, it's hard to recruit a young man if you can't come to your school. So the sacrifices they make to have them come up here, and then the communication, and then the head coaches involved at different schools, there's so much that goes into it. It's just not one person. Now, do I enjoy the recruiting tag? No, I do not. But what I do enjoy being able to find young men that want to be coached the position and try to reach an ultimate goal they've dreamt about since they were 5 years old. That's cool. That's cool. So obviously you want to build a room that they complement each other and do different things. But in the end, my job is to make sure they are surrounded by talent. I mean, coaching is great, and I agree with that if we make a large impact. But there's no better impact than peer-to-peer impact. So this young man's only going to be as good as he has to be to play at Ohio State. And when he's starting, at what point are you getting pushed? I mean, yes, I can still keep barking at you, but when you see your peer maybe outworking you or doing this better or whatever else, it makes you better. And that's the biggest thing. That was the biggest impact that Santonio Holmes and Ted Ginn and so on and so forth all had an impact on me, Anthony Gonzalez, and they're all first-rounders. So it's like that's the environment we want to create along with the phenomenal culture with Coach Day. So all of the four of these young men, relish in that, love that. We have two quarterbacks. I mean, that's unheard of that want to, are willing to compete. I feel the same way about the receivers. These are phenomenal receivers that go anywhere else in the country and probably be, maybe their guy or whatever. But in the end, they want to be together. They want to learn together. They want to push each other, and that's just phenomenal. So
When you're on the trail, are you looking for 3-4 different kinds of receivers now? I mean, you're the wide receivers coach, but there's 3 or 4 positions in there when you look at it. I mean, how do you try to fill a quota every?
Yes and no. I mean, there's always a numbers game, and there's always a who could leave game, and maybe a skill set a little bit. Like I said, though, I like guys that can basically do everything, right? And I think that, and Coach Day and everyone kind of agree. We have the same conversations. And but quota, I mean, it's based on scholarships and who might leave and who might not, and all those things. So. It's kind of complex, but however many are kind of leaving is usually how many you're trying to bring in. So you're kind of handicapped sometimes, but in the end, I'd like to make sure that I'm also meeting up great young men that are great, DBs. That affects my room, and I want to bring great young guys like that in, and so it's not just always receivers.
And one other quickie, KJ Hill, what is his legacy beyond the record, beyond the possible next record he's going to set next week? But what's his legacy to this room?
I think it's really unselfish. Again, he's a guy that could have left early. He came back, and he was a staple. I mean, if you pull KJ Hill out of our room, we are not as talented in that room. And that says a lot about him. That says a lot about his family. That says a lot about the belief he had in Coach Day and the program and where it was going. I went through a head coaching transition, and he's just steadfast, and he was ready to rock. And so it says a lot. The plays he's made throughout his career are phenomenal, but I think his biggest legacy, hopefully, will be how the young guys turn out. The guys that you leave behind and how you leave the room is your true legacy. So the impact that Terry McLaurin and Paris Campbell and Johnny Dixon had is being shown right now. And then, how these young guys now progress, both as individuals and as football players, that's KJ's legacy. That's Austin Mack's legacy. So that's Ben Vick's legacy. That's CJ Sumner's legacy. So, again, 4 guys are leaving. 4 guys are going to need to step up, and it'll be really interesting to see these guys progress come next year with these guys gone. And they have a great platform, like we talked about. They have 4 guys coming in that are going to be here in January that don't know right from wrong. So it's really hard to see, what maybe Paris Campbell or Terry McLaurin or Johnny Dixon did when you haven't been in the room with them. So they're going to see what you do. Now, are you going to carry what KJ and how they practice and Austin and Ben and CJ, or are you going to create a new standard that makes it a lot more difficult to hold? So that'll be the legacy of KJ and the rest of the guys.
Brian, a couple times this year I checked Twitter on a Friday night and see Jaxon with 200 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns in the first half.
No.
When you see that, what goes through your mind?
First, I laugh. And I'm like, gosh, I wanted 2 catches when I was in high school. Secondly, it goes through my mind. I'm like, dang, he's pretty good. That's probably second. And then I always make sure they won, right? So that's the next one. But, I guess pretty profound. I mean, the career he's had in Texas, I mean, that's a great football state. Call a spade, and for him to be amongst the best, of all time is just astounding, and I think that, another thing that jumps off too is on his Twitter, you see how good of a teammate he is. He does always talk about his O-line and the people around him, and that's really who he is. He radiates that, which is phenomenal, and I think that's awesome. But no, he's a really good, very productive player. And then inverse of Julian, I'm like, oh man, he's never going to see that many catches here in one game. So it's like, I hope he can lower his standards. No, I'm kidding. But like in the end, it's just great to see the guys have success. I mean, in the end, when you're a young athlete and you start getting talked about a lot, and the pressures these guys deal with that most guys didn't have to deal with 10 years ago, and never to deal with, the access these adults and other kids have to these athletes before they're probably even ready. Frankly, these young men are probably more versed with Twitter and social media than their parents. Their parents can't even comprehend what's going on and how to handle it and how to tweet the right way and how to have a message. So to see him carry himself the right way, that's the most impressive. And I would say that, in the end, the stats are what they are. When he has opportunity, he makes plays. But really, as a person, that's really what astounds me, and how he's able to, go through the hoops there with that and handle that the right way. So can't say enough about him and his family and how he's been raised.
A couple more, front row left, Doug.
You guys have had unbelievable success with Paris and KJ in the slot in your time here. But there's some smaller slot guys in the Big Ten, Rondale Moore and KJ Hamler and guys like that. With Mookie, were you interested in that? You talked a little bit about a different skill set a little bit. He's just a smaller slot guy. Were you intrigued of bringing in a guy like that?
No, I wouldn't say, oh, yeah, where's my short guy at? I wasn't looking for that.
I'm no short guy.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that. But, to me, I'm big on, to me, I always think, I don't care. So his eyes are this height versus that height. I don't know if that changes. It's more about, your range, your catch range. Are you explosive to get off the ground? Does it matter if you're 5'11"? If you can jump out of the gym, then it doesn't matter if I was 6'4" and can't jump. So, to me, I think that you do want different guys with skill sets. You're looking for guys that are explosive. Looking for guys, again, culturally, they fit here first, and then you go about, maybe if you do a speed sweep, some guys are maybe built more for that. Maybe he has a little more running background, so it's better for him to carry the football. And how physical is he? Is he willing to block? There's a lot more that goes into it than just, I want to look alike. That's not it at all. It's just skill set, different, and I think that, his return capabilities are phenomenal. So there's just more of a skill set than it is height and weight and everything else too. But with that being said, I mean, if you're going to be, 5'10", in our opinion, in our offense, you got to be able to block. So to be 170 pounds, that doesn't usually work out right, because it's hard to go walk, be in the slot and block a walkout backer, in the run game. But then also you want to catch a go ball. They have to marry up. But frankly, we ask these guys to do a lot of things, but you got to do it both. We can't just sub for a pass play and then on a run play we put someone else in there. So you got to make sure that, again, that's a lot of it through the years, between the years is you have the mindset to go in there and block a sandbacker. And then is he fast enough to go catch a ball? That skill set's pretty hard to find, believe it or not. And we've done a pretty darn good job of finding it over the years. And we have to continue to do that, but that's a rare skill set.
What's the situation with him when you have a guy like that who has a situation like Mookie did this year? Mm-hmm. How do you talk to him during the season? Because you don't.
Yeah, I think it's...
And what do you have to do to coach him up when he gets here?
It's a little different because he wasn't injured. But, I mean, you've had injured guys come back, and I think that, if anything, he's taking less hits on the body. He's even fresher. So I'm good. But, for Mook, it was hard for him because football is his life, and he's always done it since he was young, had to change schools. So there's a lot of transition there, new friends, So there was a lot of communication there helping him and talking with mom and everybody too. But, again, he's a fighter. He's tough, and he handled it. Was there bad days? Of course. But I think that in the end, communication was excellent, and he's a stud. He's got a lot to learn, and he's going to continue to grow up, but he's awesome. So.
Last question is,
with as young as you are and as successful as you've been, if I were a receiver coming into this program, I would wonder when you would get a chance to be more than a position coach. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if that is something that comes up in recruiting your personal future and how you address it if it does.
Yeah, I address it. I think that, for me, college football is a crazy, crazy world, and it's only getting crazier. I think that, it all comes back down to purpose, in my opinion, and nothing on any one of their coaches out there. I have a strong passion for Ohio State. From 2 hours from here, my wife's from Columbus. Her family's here. My family's only 2 hours away. I think that I have friends that are all here from high school that live here. I'm very passionate about Ohio State. I think, at this point it's really early. I don't want to sound ignorant to the fact, but I don't know what would get me out of the city, frankly, unless I'm just not good. So hopefully I can control that and keep getting better, but I think that my passion lies in this receiver room. I love coaching the wide receivers, and there's a lot of coaches that say they'll never leave. And, never is a long time, but again, being honest, realistically, I don't see a situation where, hopefully I'm out of here anytime soon. Hopefully I'm here for a long time. Again, I've earned it year in and year out. It's not given to anybody, but currently I have no desire to go there or go here or do. I just don't. I love being here. I love talking to you guys, and it's very natural and easy to just shoot it from the heart and not. So I prefer to live in that world, and I'll be here as long as hopefully they'll have me. So.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.